Hello, Sunshine. I'm Alexi Lawless, and welcome to the State of the Union Show, presented by Zillow. Someday starts today. This is where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. Up next in our group previews, oh my goodness, we look at Group H and the defending European champions, Spain. But first, joining me as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. All right, my friend, you ready to light this candle here on Group H?
Yes.
What do we got?
As you mentioned, Group H headlined by Spain, who won the World Cup in South Africa back in 2010. But since then, group stage, round of 16. So a sneaky bad World Cup pedigree of late. We'll see if they can put that right this summer. A lot of people think they can. Then you have debutants Cape Verde, who were briefly the smallest nation in terms of land area to qualify for World Cup, but then Curacao made it and usurped them on that list. You've got Saudi Arabia, who have only made it beyond the group stage once, but it was in the United States back in 1994. And then two-time champions Uruguay in 1930 and 1950. They do wear 4 stars on their jersey. More on that in a minute. But so that is Group H. Let's start with Spain. They begin against Cape Verde, which may not be a competitive affair. How do you see Spain? A lot of people are picking them to win this World Cup.
Yeah, I think your safe money is on France and Spain relative to winning the World Cup, given what they have done, given the talent that they have, given the depth that they have. Lamine Yamal is worth the price of admission. He has very, very quickly become one of the great players in the world and moved from being a teenage phenomenon to being one of the great players in the world who just happens to be a teenager. And this is also a Spain team. We've kind of evolved from the ticky-tacky type of Spain that for some people was what made it beautiful and romantic, for other people what made it maddening. And I think in a sense they have combined the best of both worlds and hoping that it creates the best version of Spain, at least for the game that we exist in today.
Yeah, when they won the Euros in 24, we really highlighted the fact that they had blended in the tiki-taka approach with more of a direct style whenever they needed it. The two players that really gave them that were Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal on the wings. They had injury scares with both. It sounds like they'll both be okay when they really need them at this tournament. Lamine might miss the first game or two, but as long as he's healthy for the knockout stage, and I agree with you with him. I mean, if he was healthy from the start, he might have been my golden ball pick. I just worried that if he's going to miss the first couple of games and maybe need another game or two to really get into a rhythm, that might harm his chances. But yeah, an absolutely wonderful player. It cracks me up. When the Spain squad was announced, there were some people on X who said, why are people carrying on about this team? The names are not that impressive, which totally misses the point of what makes Spain special. It's the synchronicity of the team. It's almost like dropping a club team into an international tournament, the way they play. Yeah, the names don't necessarily pop that much at certain positions, but the way they play together, that midfield with Rodri and Pedri, you've got Zubimendi there now, and Oyarzabal up top. So, yeah, I'm very high on Spain. I think they are primed for a deep run and could potentially win this World Cup.
Yeah, and to your point, at times it was maddening, the adherence to the way that Spain played. And I think they recognized that was not sustainable, both in terms of the way that the game had progressed and personnel, relative to personnel. And so you gotta let the horses run. And whether it's, Lamine Yamal on one side and Nico Williams and these, off wings, just taking players on, the formula is the ability to win the ball back still very, very quickly, but then also to get it to the players who individually can do these wonderful things. So it's amazing. It's amazing to see, and it's a credit to the coaches and the leadership there to recognize that they didn't rest on their laurels, that they needed to evolve and change with the times and the personnel that they have. So look, it's pretty safe money if you're putting it on Spain.
One of the criticisms of the expansion to 48 is that we could get some ugly score lines in the group stage.
How dare you preface it with this?
Spain began their campaign against Cape Verde, who do have a very good player in Ryan Mendes. But how do you see Cape Verde comporting themselves in that game and in this group overall?
Well, for those that listen to the State of the Union, you will know, the story that I told of being in Washington, D.C. at the bar before the World Cup draw and meeting Bubista, the coach of Cape Verde, and just a wonderful, wonderful man who I think has perspective and recognizes that, yes, there's an element of just happy to be there. But as long as they're there, they might as well do some things. Uh, One of the stories I think is going to be, and I've said this about some other teams here, is again, the diaspora that hears. Evidently, there are more Cape Verdeans in the United States than there actually are in Cape Verde. And, I've already watch some different reports, especially when it comes up to Boston and the Roxbury area up there. And I think that is going to be part of the story that we tell this summer when it comes to Cape Verde. I mean, they're absolutely in for it in terms of their first game being against Spain. But, if they were able to score a goal, let alone if they were able to get a point, it would go down in history and they would be instantly even more legends than they already are just for qualifying for this World Cup.
Spain's second opponent is Saudi Arabia. So again, no disrespect to those two teams, but if Lamine needs to sit out the first two games, it's
true.
against Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia. And the interesting thing for me with Saudi Arabia is you might recall about a decade ago, China was throwing crazy money around to sign these big stars. And the thinking was bringing these players to China would help the Chinese players develop and would benefit the national team. And once that didn't happen, they pivoted to a different approach. So Saudi Arabia is trying that now and thinking that bringing these Cristiano Ronaldos and Karim Benzema's to Saudi Arabia is going to help the domestic player. You might recall a couple of years ago when Netflix did a documentary about the Saudi Pro League, they went to great lengths to point out that it's not just about the foreign stars. There are all these good Saudi players we want to highlight as well. So let's see. Hervé Renard no longer there, but it's now Matt Crocker pulling the strings in the federation. You've got Salem Al-Dassari. We'll see if Saudi Arabia, who did beat Argentina in their opening match at the last World Cup, we'll see what they can do here.
Yeah, I mean, they started off great in the last World Cup, but you mentioned, the trap at times of bringing in outside talent. When that talent comes in that you hope is going to bring up your domestic talent, that's all fine and well, unless your domestic talent can't get on the field and can't get these types of jobs. And we mentioned this earlier when we were talking about, Qatar and other leagues. How do they promote these leagues relative to these international stars coming?
Frankly, MLS has even struggled with that balance at times.
It's a hard thing, but it'll be interesting to see if Saudi Arabia goes the way of China, because China came in big and then they moved on to other things and spent their money elsewhere. We'll see if Saudi Arabia phases out. Now, with World Cups coming and everything, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But as far as on the field, they have yet to produce in this era a Saudi Arabia team that you say, wow, that is something pretty phenomenal.
I mentioned Salem Al-Dassari. He scored in that win over Argentina at the last World Cup, so he's their main man. And then finally, Uruguay. As you know, I'm a Marcelo Bielsa groupie. I thought that was a great fit. They got off to a nice start in this cycle. They beat Brazil early in qualifying, won away to Argentina at La Bombonera. But things have really soured the last year or so, including that 5-1 defeat to the United States. It seems like the players are kind of out on Bielsa. You still have some interesting names. You've got Valverde, Ugarte in that midfield, Darwin Nunez up top, Jimenez at the back. But all of a sudden, I'm not sure I'm expecting much from Uruguay at this World Cup.
Really? All right. I'm a little more bullish about them. I'm not. I don't buy Bielsa, so I think it's ridiculous. So I'm not. I'm not in that camp. I understand why it gets old really, really quick. And much quicker than it should, and even from afar. And I'm not even internal, but I still think that this team can do some good things. And again, it goes back to what I mentioned. I think that South American teams are going to have good summers here at the World Cup. So I'm more bullish, and I guess it leads into my match of the group here.
Can I go on my 4 stars rant?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, pay that one off for sure.
I don't like, there's this false duality where either you have to dismiss the significance of a tournament or pretend it's something that it's not. Uruguay won the gold medal at the 1924 and 1928 Olympics. If you know your history, those are incredibly significant tournaments in the history of the sport because They led to the creation of the World Cup, and then Uruguay promptly won the first World Cup on home soil in 1930, then won it again in 50. They won 2 of the first 4 World Cups. They should be incredibly proud of those gold medals in 24 and 28. But I'm sorry, to put those stars on the jersey and act like you're a 4-time world champion because you won 2 Olympic gold medals, that to me is weak. I've never been a fan of that. And I have a lot of time for Uruguay. I think, frankly, when you think about the population of that country, 3 million people, the success they've had, the players they produce, pound for pound, they might be the most impressive soccer nation on the planet. But that 4 stars thing rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah, it's weird. It's one thing if the league kind of rebrands to something else, okay? But this is a completely different tournament. And I know they're trying to equate it. Now, and so much so that if you go back and you look at what the World Cup looked like when it first started, it resembles nothing like what we are doing or we're going to be doing here in the summer of 2026. But it's still a World Cup, branded a World Cup, and that's where I'm okay. I don't think you need to parse out, well, you know, you had a completely different group way of playing groups or the amount of teams or all that kind of stuff. It's still a World Cup, even though it can be very, very different. But Olympics is a different thing, even though it begets the World Cup. I understand exactly what you're saying, so I'm all for that. All right.
All right. So now the match of the group. You have Uruguay, Spain.
Yes, you mentioned that this could also represent as the third game when the Lamine Yamal comes back. Who knows? It wouldn't surprise me in the least if he comes back earlier. But if he sits out the first couple of games, this is when he comes back. This is when Spain, let's be honest, probably is going to be tested for the first time. And so, yeah, I'm marking down Uruguay, Spain in Guadalajara down there. It's going to be hot.
Although Uruguay, pretty physical. I don't know if you want to bring Lamine Yamal back for that game.
Oh, right.
Although then you're holding him out until the knockout.
Why don't you just put him in mothballs until the final, Mossy?
And then your picks for this group.
Yeah, okay. I got Spain winning the group, Uruguay finishing second, Saudi Arabia third, and Cape Verde coming in fourth. But Bubista still has a good old party after the World Cup. All good?
All good.
All right, there's Group H, as we mentioned. Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. When we come back, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. Oh, my goodness. Group I in the 2026 World Cup. We'll give you a preview.